For shoulder flexion, the subject is seated with the humerus in neutral position. The axis of the goniometer is center of the humerus, just distal to the acromion process on the lateral aspect of the humerus. The stationary bar and the movable bar are parallel to the trunk. The client's arm is raised in front of her body in a sagittal plane of movement. The measurement begins at 0 degrees and ranges to 170 degrees. For shoulder extension, the subject is seated with no obstruction behind the humerus, and the humerus is in a neutral position. The position of the goniometer is the same as it was for shoulder flexion. The client's arm is brought in the back of the body in a sagittal plane of movement. The measurement begins at 0 degrees and ranges to 60 degrees. For shoulder abduction, the subject is seated with the humerus in adduction and external rotation. The axis of the goniometer is on the acromion process of the posterior surface of the shoulder. The stationary bar is parallel to the trunk and the movable bar is parallel to the client's arm is raised to the side of the body in a frontal plane of movement. The measurement begins at 0 degrees and ranges to 170 degrees. For shoulder horizontal abduction, the subject is seated with the shoulder abducted to 90 degrees. The elbow extended with the palm facing down. The axis of the goniometer is over the acromion process. The stationary bar is parallel over the shoulder toward the neck, and the movable bar is parallel to the humerus on the superior axis. The client's arm is moved towards the back of the body in the horizontal plane of movement. Measurement begins at 0 degrees and ranges to 40 degrees. For shoulder horizontal adduction, the subject and the goniometer are the same as they were for shoulder horizontal abduction. The client's arm is moved in front of the body in the horizontal plane of movement. The measurement begins at 0 degrees and ranges to 130 degrees. For shoulder internal rotation, the subject is seated with the humerus abducted to 90 degrees and the elbow flexed to 90 degrees. The axis of the goniometer is on the olecranon process of the elbow, and the stationary bar and movable bar are parallel to the forearm. The client's forearm is swung down, gently keeping the humerus parallel to the floor. The range of motions begins at 0 degrees and ranges to 70 degrees. For shoulder external rotation, the subject is seated with the humerus abducted to 90 degrees and the elbow flexed to 90 degrees, and the forearm in mid-position perpendicular to the body. The axis of the goniometer is on the olecranon process of the elbow, and the stationary bar and movable bar are parallel to the forearm. The client's forearm is swung up gently, keeping the humerus parallel to the floor. The measurement begins at 0 degrees and ranges to 90 degrees.